Welcome to episode 211 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. My name is Dave Deacon, and we got a really great show for you today. We get to sit down with the pride of Greer County, Oklahoma, who just happens to be in charge of Oklahoma State University's Plant and Soil Sciences Department, Dr. Wade Thomason. We learn about his path from Southwest Oklahoma to Virginia, and eventually back to his alma mater where he leads the likes of Dr. Brian Arnell and Dr. Josh Lofton, and of course all of their colleagues too. Come to think of it, it kind of looked like Dr. Thomason was filling out their annual reports while we were recording this. Well, I guess we'll see if they're around next week. We'll get to his interview in just a few minutes, and also a sneak peek at some details on a pretty big project coming to the Oklahoma State University campus area. By the way, you'll be able to find all of that information and everything else we talk about on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. As always, we start with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and everything that grows from it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University's Extension Cropping System Specialist.
I think the funny thing is we're at a weird crossroads, right? Some of the kids that maybe want to be in our department don't want to take the math and the chemistry, and the ones that would take the math and chemistry have never heard of us before.
Dr. Josh Lofton. Next to him is an Extension Agricultural Engineer with Oklahoma State University.
Well, I think you brought, when you mentioned Sam Emerson, that's the faculty fellow on Nourishing the World. Well, let me clue you in. You're not going to nourish the world without an agronomist.
Dr. Randy Taylor. And of course, next to him is Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
So talk a little bit about, we've had some new hires. We're hoping to look for some new hires. So what is the department, in your vision, what's the department going to look like in 5 years?
Dr. Brian Arnell. Without further ado, let's kick off the interview with a quick update with some upcoming dates of some pretty cool events coming in the next month. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. Brian, there's some
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
This reminds me of old times.
Foul tip ball left field.
I didn't know we were doing a sun-up.
No, I know.
Right?
All right, take number 21.
One of my favorite clips is me and Josh, or Josh and I'm getting ready to introduce it, and I have no idea what I'm going to introduce. And
I probably didn't either.
I started out and I said, blip, 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 and then I stopped and I looked at him and he goes, canola. Okay.
Standing at E-fall when it was 15 degrees, probably.
Right, that's what it was. And I think we were underneath the shed, so I think there was some type of precipitation or something. And I just
is that the one where we went to go see it? Where you went and got B-roll? It was sleeting at the time.
That's what it was. And I couldn't think. And Josh politely looked over and goes, canola. Okay, thank you. And then I did my packaged intro, but. Since we've been prompted on that, Brian, there's a pretty good size event coming up here. You're bringing in folks from all over the country to talk with Oklahoma producers from across the Southwest, across the Great Plains. Boy, I'm building this up, aren't I? It's world renowned. People have traveled from all four corners of the globe.
At least Garfield County,
yeah, and it's a square county, so that works out. But the winter crop school, I've built it up. You take it from there. What can folks expect?
I can't wait to see how you edit that
intro.
Oh
man, it's going to work out.
All right, so Oklahoma Winter CCA Crop School is going on this December. We are moving it so that we start on Tuesday. The registration's at 8. We start at 10 so that we can be in. If you're in for the crop school, it's going to be Tuesday and Wednesday, the 19th and 20th, starting a little bit later on the 19th, so you can travel in that morning through the entirety of the 20th. There will be 13 CCA CEUs and one ODAF CEU. The Monday prior, we'll do the CCA exam prep in Ag Hall, so just sign up for both of them. But a pretty good group. All of my fellows here, my yahoos here, will be on the program. So Lofton will be speaking. Randy, I'm really excited about the engineering session. So we'll have Randy, John Long, and Wes Lowe from Mississippi State talk about basically different aspects of machinery advancements, planters, sprayers, and other things kind of go through that. And so we've got Wes coming up from Mississippi State. We've got Joseph Burke coming up from A&M, talking about a lot of cropping systems. He's a new hire at Lubbock, been there for a while working under Katie Lewis. So a lot of nutrient cycling in that high plain system, cover crop in the high place system. Jonathan Aguilar from K-State will be coming in talking irrigation, and a couple other special guests we're bringing in. But, 13 CCA CEUs, one ODAF applicator CEU, and it's our big event. We used to have 2 where we used to do the no-till and this, or the crop school and this. So this is really our big event. We'll have 130 to 160 on site. There is a virtual option. Just go to the registration site. If you just Google OSU Winter Crop School 23, that takes you to registration.
I was going to ask if registration was still open, and do you have an idea? Is it maxed out? Is there a top number for in person?
There is. We're not there yet. I think the ballroom, it's in the Union ballroom, can hold about 170. I think we've still got a little ways to go. Our numbers are going to be, I think, about average this year, 130, 150 in person.
Mm-hmm. And years past, I mean, like I say, I know of folks who've come from at least 3 states, and they take that information back, and they also get the credits that they're there for, but they also, I mean, more importantly, they learn something that they can take back to their farms.
It's been a good event, and we've had the group has put together over the years really diverse. We don't have a lot of repetition.
Right.
We get diversity. We bring in a lot of outside guests so they don't hear us, yelling off our back porch or front porch to them about the normal things. But it's been a good event over the years.
And speaking of, I mean, you've had this thing with your throat for a couple of weeks now. You
apparently,
need to go have that looked at.
Thanks.
I mean, this has been the second podcast that this has been there, so who knows? The next one may have it too. So
you didn't bring my whiskey, so that can
right. And actually, while we're talking about it, we're going to be at the KNID AgriFest coming up January 12th and 13th. So we're going to do a couple of podcasts over there at the event. So come on by and see us. We're going to be in the Oklahoma Wheat Commission and Oklahoma Wheat Growers Association booth. Going to have a pretty good time. Brian's going to come over. Josh is learning that he's going to come over, and
I'm actually putting it in my calendar right now.
Oh, okay. And then, but yeah, we're going to try to record a couple of podcasts while we're over there too. Randy, if you're available, you're more than welcome to come over. I mean, we could all carpool.
I might need a ride.
lay out or lay on the horn outside your house too. Yeah. But yeah, come on by and see us, and it'll be a good time. It'll be a lot of fun, and lots of great ideas from different folks over there at the AgriFest, the KNID AgriFest, the 27th year I think this is.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I can remember going there as a kid, and here it is, still going, getting bigger than ever. So I guess, do you want to just dive in with he's clear for the takeoff. So since Josh got pointed at, he's going to introduce our special guest.
I'm still putting it in my calendar.
Well,
we don't need Pee Wee Herman introducing our special guest today.
Grab that paper.
Well, Taylor can do it.
Well, he's your boss.
Yeah,
he's his boss too.
Well,
okay, so
this is why it takes us an hour and a half to get through a podcast.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
I'm horrible at introductions. I don't know why you still let me do these things.
Because I can't speak.
Tell him Large Marge sent you. Well, that's good. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, with we have a lot of new folks here in the department. One of those being a department head who is a return to the state and has been here, as a native Okie, right?
Correct.
Yeah, there we go. And was at school here and served some time out on the East Coast and decided to come back as department head. So and wrangle us cats out here,
right.
so to say. So I'll let him further introduce himself while I put this.
What's his name, Josh?
I'm still putting the podcast in my calendar. Dr. Wade Thomas.
There you go.
Thanks for that, Josh. I appreciate that.
Your appraisal is coming up soon.
I'm going to have to move out of my office by the time I get back home.
Oh, yeah. So, your story is accurate. I grew up in Greer County, Oklahoma, in the rainy part of the state where all the trees are.
Right.
Actually, the part of the state where if you find a tree, you found water.
That's true.
Or an old homestead where somebody watered them. I came here. I have a bachelor's degree in animal science. Realized that that wasn't a career that I was really cut out for. So, then got a master's in agronomy and a PhD in soil science. After that, I worked at the Noble Foundation for a couple of years on one of their consulting teams. That also wasn't for me. And so after that, moved to Virginia Tech to be their corn and small grain agronomist for a little over 19 years. And people ask, how I ended up in Virginia, and the truth is they wanted to hire a row crop agronomist, and I wanted to be one. So
the answer is they offered you the job.
they offered me a job. That's absolutely true.
So I actually got to know Wade while he was down at Noble, so there's ties there. My major prof was Dr. Bill Ron, so was his major prof, both his agriculturalists. But I got to work with Wade a little bit, going down to do Bernieville Bermuda grass work as a master's student. That was always enjoyable, but so
it's like the second hottest place on earth, if I remember it correctly. It was so hot down there mowing grass. You're out in the middle of a field with a tiny lawnmower. That's great.
And the basket that you guys built that fell apart and cut you. They welded basically this blower onto a John Deere mower, and the basket was wire.
It's an aluminum box with window screen in it.
Window screen.
Wow.
And every corner was sharp, and I think it was no longer window screen by the time we got it. It was just a metal mesh.
Okay.
And so all things cut.
Oh my gosh.
There was blood, tears, and everything else.
So what has 19 years in Virginia? What was the big change whenever you came back to Oklahoma and Oklahoma State?
Well, so I came back in August of 2022, late July of 2022,
Right.
and I realized I knew how hot it was in Oklahoma, and how silly it was for me to move here in the end of July. And I said, I knew this.
Yeah.
So that was a big piece. The institutions are obviously quite different. And truthfully, I knew, sort of as an administrator, I knew what I was getting in with the faculty.
Right.
It's a really good group that's really cohesive and works together very well, communicates very well. The surprising thing for me was really how the quality of the staff that we have to work with. Everybody that supports us is, they do everything they can to help us do what we want to do, and it's something I didn't know that was going to be there, but something that's certainly been a blessing.
So talk a little bit about, we've had some new hires. We're hoping to look for some new hires. So what is the department, in your vision, what's the department going to look like in 5 years?
In 5 years, I think we've got some holes to fill. As you guys know, Jason Warren's not in the room, so he's doing extension administrative things. And so that's a hole for us, is to have somebody in that role. We've also got to fill a soil chemist. I feel really supported by our administration. When we had a weed scientist, and when Misha left, she was doing a great job. But when I really looked hard at that position, what I realized was it's really asking too much of somebody to do teaching, research, and extension. She didn't have a research appointment, but if you have a heavy extension appointment, you have to do applied research. So we were able to negotiate 2 positions. You talked to Liberty, I believe, or will soon, about her extension program. And so I'm excited about that. We've got some added strength on the weed science side. Our other hire, Dr. Shrestha, is actually a weed geneticist. And so, I've been joking with people about, we can't seem to win the battle by attacking them on the outside, so we're going to go at them from the inside.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that we'll build some strength in there, and that'll be one of our signature programs throughout the region. We've also, I see us growing in the areas of data science, and maybe the ability to study plants and soils with greater depth, and with a greater ability to investigate some of these things where we have large data sets. And then I think in some ways, in that capacity, I also think we're going to need sort of a faculty member that's like the human easy button, that takes that takes the data and what we understand from it and all these other things, and then translates it into something or puts it in an interface that other people can actually use. I don't think any of us necessarily wants to be the person who sits down with the equivalent of 77 file cabinets full of data collected yesterday,
right,
and sort through it. And so we all need that translator. And so I see those additions coming for us. I think we may also grow in the area of genomics as I look at gene editing and some of those technologies that are out there that are, I think, going to be more widespread and more widely accepted than some of the GMO technologies. And so I think there may be an opportunity for us in that space as well.
So we had Randy Raper in a couple months ago talking about New Frontiers. Talk about that transition more so on the departmental side. What are we gaining from where we are now in Ag Hall into our move in New Frontiers specifically for the Plant Soil Sciences Department?
Well, we gain about 70 years of newness on our lab space and areas, and so the things that were built and sized for 1956. You guys all know. We've changed what we do. We've changed the scope of what we do it, of how we do it. I don't know how many faculty members would have been here in the 50s and 60s, but it would have been a lot more than today. But their individual programs were smaller, just of necessity. And so, the amount of just the sheer number of samples and the number of protocols and everything that faculty are running today, I think it's going to fit better in that. I also, we've, for good or bad, the lab space in both the soils lab and the plant science lab is shared. The soils, I think we're the only ones in the soil space, but multiple departments in the plant space. And so I'm sure there'll be some growing pains with that. But what it does in that way, it's genius on the part of the administration in one way, because we never run out of labs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just have to just put more people in there if they need lab space. But that said, you're able to grow a program and then contract a program just by simply moving bench space, right? You don't actually have to physically go wrestle the keys for that lab away from a professor who's not performing as well anymore, or just doesn't have a bigger program. And so I think that piece of it will be easier. I also think we're looking at our science being much more collaborative and interdisciplinary than any other time, and I don't see that changing. And so I think some of these creative collisions that would happen, maybe much more likely in that shared space than what it is today.
What about for our students? Because that was the big push is getting a new space for our students. Getting us out of the old Ag Hall and allowing them a lot more access to some of this newness as well.
Absolutely, that's it. When you look at the facility, you can tell it was intended to be very student facing, particularly toward the undergraduates. I think it was at Lahoma. I was on a trailer with Karen Eifert Jones, and she was talking about that the front steps of Ag Hall were Facebook when she was here.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you got caught up on what everybody's doing and all the gossip and everything. But the truth is that that's about what we have in terms of interaction space, open space for students right now is on the steps out front, in that main foyer. In a department, of course, we've got a student lounge area and that sort of thing, but this is going to be much more open, much more opening with, a lot more opportunities for students to come and gather and stay. And I think that's going to be a really good thing. Of course, the dairy bar, they're going to have the new and improved dairy bar in the building. And I don't understand that, because we only went to the dairy bar to hide from the faculty whose classes we were skipping.
Absolute truth.
So to have it on the first floor of the building where Arnell is, I don't know about it,
All the faculty will be in there. It's like the students have to go somewhere else.
Exactly right. Yeah, they're going to have to find another place to huddle up. But no, we're really looking forward to that. There are a huge number of logistical challenges between now and then in order to get over there and get up and running. But I think it'll be really positive for us in terms of the student experience. It's probably help our student recruiting, and all those things. We expand the size of the Student Success Center, so they're able to offer more tutoring, more programs there. So I think it's a very positive piece especially for the undergraduates.
Well, just in terms of lecture hall, laboratory space. Those are massive improvements over what we're in half of our rooms right now. Just the improvement of audiovisual and just seating and the ability to move stuff around.
And of course, the old Ag Hall is still going to be there.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just expanding on more space for more students.
So we're going to the university is going to take possession. The broader university is going to take possession of some portions of Ag Hall.
Right.
There are some programs that are staying behind. So the soil water forage testing lab will stay. The county training program and Ag Econ will stay, and a lot of the admin functions, sort of accounting and those sorts of folks will stay in Ag Hall. But I know full well the university is, with their intention to grow to the size that they want to grow, they've got to find some more classroom space, and a lot of it's going to come from some of these areas in Ag Hall.
That's kind of the focus on campus, but the Plant Soil Sciences Department is a statewide department. I mean, you have interest in all the different research stations across the state. Talk about managing such a large operation, from that standpoint.
Well, luckily from my standpoint, I don't have to.
Right.
We've got a few personnel that are scattered around the state. We have 3 faculty members at the Institute of Agricultural Bioscience there in Ardmore. But as far as the administration of the centers, that's all done centrally through the Ag Research Office. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't get involved because you've got their staff there. We've got our faculty working in between. And from my perspective, it's almost always that one of those two sides wants some money to do something. so that's where I come in, is trying to decide whose priorities take precedence right now, and then just how much can we get to support that. But we are blessed here to have that network. We were just talking, I guess last week, Dr. Coffey, the animal science head, and I had an opportunity to have a discussion with Dr. Emerson, who's the faculty fellow in charge of the President's Initiative on Nourishing the World. And so we were talking about, all of these opportunities for experiential learning that we have, hands-on research, but also, how nice it is to be able to be a couple of minutes from campus and be able to bring students out here and take a soil sample, look at plant disease, touch an animal. And so, and that's a real draw for us in students who are coming here from out of state. They look at these applied hands-on programs that we still have that other places have jettisoned for the lack of the commitment to the funding because they're expensive. But it's a draw because we still have that.
So you've been in a year. How do you see the departments? I'm going to rephrase this. You can edit this out, thank you.
Oh, we're not going to.
Yeah.
I edit quick, so I don't know. I'm going to miss it.
Based upon your expectations, what you've seen, how's the department viewed by our clientele? How do the people out in the country see what we're doing?
So the interactions I've had so far have been very positive. Probably most strikingly for me in terms of the folks who are hiring our students. Every person I've asked that I've said, what can we do better? What are we not doing? They're like, you guys are great. We love hiring Oklahoma State grads. Wish you just train a few more. Mm-hmm. So that part's been really positive. Obviously, our the extension programs that are here are excellent, and you only need to look at how many places you guys get invited to go share your information to understand that regionally, nationally, what we're doing here is top notch.
How does the recruitment of students out look in the future? I mean, because it's getting tighter with the competition of other universities, and are there degree areas that Plant Soil Sciences is really tending to focus on?
So I think going forward, at least for the next 10 years, we probably continue to market ourselves as a hands-on, applied, very active program. The one thing that is underway right now is it's being driven by, but it's a partnership with the Entomology and Plant Pathology Department to create an undergraduate certificate in integrated pest management. So they would, even if a student doesn't graduate, they can come take the hours for that certificate program. but also when they do finish with their bachelor's degree, they will have been trained in weed science, in pathology, and in entomology. So making them very marketable and very well rounded, I think, particularly for our crop science students.
He's passing the interview very well so far. He's doing very well.
I was in extension for 20 years.
It comes natural.
You just talk and numbers are easy.
Right.
Whatever you need.
Well, no, I asked that because I'm part of another podcast up in Kansas, and they recently had some folks on from K-State, and they're actively, trying to recruit into very specific areas like the feed sciences, the feed mill industry, and I was just curious about how if there is that primary program out there that Plant Soil Sciences at Oklahoma State's really trying to funnel kids towards.
We're really not at this point.
That's
I think
good.
what I'm hearing from the industry is that they want well-rounded students,
right,
who have a broad training, broad exposure to a lot of things, and we work pretty hard and continue to work hard on the soft skills. We're revamping how we assess our programs in those areas, and just got that done. And so I think we're going to continue to focus on that and be able to improve, maybe even help those students a little bit better in some of those areas. And it's sort of interesting. The thing that came back on our survey information this time, our students of all the professional competencies on the soil on the soft skill side, they scored lowest in judgment.
Really?
And and you look at that and you say, a 20-year-old maybe didn't rank as high as you might expect on judgment. So, but anyway, I got a laugh out of that because I was like, yeah, that's probably expected.
But they're still smart enough to come in out of the rain. That's the important thing.
So how's it been working with students again? Because in Blacksburg, did you have a whole lot of teaching or interaction with the undergrads?
So I had an extension and research appointment, so I had no regular teaching commitments. In fact, I came in as a guest lecturer in about their junior and senior level courses, and for the most part, they if they didn't work at the farm or around, we hadn't met each other. So I always got to introduce myself as the guy from the fourth flue who you've seen, but you have no idea what I do. And so it's been a lot of fun, actually. I've never taught a class before, so that's been interesting. In extension, you just have to have like 2 or 3 good jokes to get you through an entire quarter of the year. You got to face these kids 3 times a week. You got to be a lot better prepared.
Your jokes don't work anymore, by the way, too.
That's probably true. That's probably true. They work on my 8-year-old nephew, though. He thinks I'm great.
8-year-olds and 50-year-old farmers, they like the same jokes. That's what I've learned. 20-year-olds, not so much.
I hear you there. But no, it's been fun. And the other thing about it is, now I end up, I'm walking down the hall and I'm greeted by 3 or 4 people and I actually know who they are. Yeah. The students, and you see them out and around or whatever. And so, yeah, it's good. It's great to have the opportunity to get to know them a little bit. It's great, and it's also challenging because once they know you and they have that personal relationship, they will walk right into my office and say, I don't like this, or I need you to do that. And that's the other side of the coin, I guess.
Very true.
So going away from your current position and into your former world as a scientist, moving from Oklahoma to Virginia, what was the biggest thing you noticed different? I mean, besides the fact that it's maybe not as hot there as it is here. But from a grower mentality or the way things work or something along those lines, what did you see as the biggest difference between those systems?
Well, obviously the environment's different. Mm-hmm. And it's challenging. You've got, Oklahoma's a very diverse state. Virginia really has 3 regions, right? There's the coastal plain, which is sandy soils. You've got the Piedmont, which are those rolling clays, and then you've got the uplands in the Appalachian Plateau and in the Shenandoah Valley, which are silt loam. So you've got a diverse set of conditions across there, not to mention a few thousand feet in elevation. A challenge for me is I was in Blacksburg in the southwest corner where it's animal ag. You go to the Shenandoah Valley, which is a couple hours drive, but the majority of what I did was 4 hours away. So most days that I wanted to do something, I had a 250 mile commute before I actually got to do much work. On the grower side, I would say that there are a couple of things, and but I would say that the average Virginia grower was very progressive. I think they have to be because of their small field sizes. They're crammed in with a lot more population than what we have, and so they have a really good basis on their grain and soybean markets because of the proximity to animals and people. But the other things, you would get thrown under the jail if you parked a semi in the highway to load and unload there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a different perspective on that. And so the other thing is, because of the proximity to Chesapeake Bay, they're very environmentally literate. We hosted a tour, the tillage folks. Anyway, we hosted a tour of farmers from the Midwest, and the farmers in Virginia were talking about nitrogen leaching and runoff and eutrophication, and these guys from the Midwest were like, why are we talking about this? We're in a farm field. But that's the life of everybody there because of the water quality concerns.
So one of your big things you did, or at least whenever you came and interviewed for this position, is your barley thing. So, I mean, do you care to speak just a smidge on what you did in that region?
Well, I guess, in looking back, if there was anything that I'd be recognized for, it was working a lot with what we would call specialty small grains. So Virginia is a soft red winter wheat state, mostly going to cookies and crackers and that sort of stuff. So we worked with hard wheat and introduced 100,000 acres, 5 to 100 depending on the year, acres of hard wheat there because the mills demanded it. We also worked with durum wheat, which never really got off the ground. It's just too wet and too many diseases. But we did have the privilege to work with barley, and the big reason for that is because of the loss of acreage. When the animal industries integrated, they could just as easily rail corn in from wherever rather than have that feedstock grown locally, and so barley acres basically went away. But our small grain breeder decided to maintain a barley breeding program, and so, the short answer is we did everything we could to keep the life, blowing some air into that thing and keep it alive. And in the last few years, the last 8 years of my career, the craft brewing industry and distilling industry really took off there as it did in other places. And so because of that, because we had the breeding program, we've been looking at some food grade stuff. We really had the opportunity then to get into the malting barley for the brewing and distilling area. We had a couple of very innovative farmers, a fellow named Billy Dawson, who's on the northern neck of Virginia, which is just almost rock throwing distance from the Potomac. But Billy had a facility where he was producing food grade grains. So he sold everything from deer corn to small processed stuff for some small millers. So he was in a great position to do this because he was already set up to handle human food grade stuff. Anyway, Virginia Tech released a malting barley, so the first program in the eastern U.S. I mean, I guess it depends on where you think about Wisconsin, but you're certainly in the southeast in some time. And we were able to have some really good success with that in a program in Southwest Virginia. So the folks down there have been facing a lot of the same things that other rural areas have. A lack of employment opportunities for young people, aging farm population, not the income not being where it needs to be, and so they've really built the industry up around tourism. But what they came to realize is that as soon as you parked the 4-wheeler for the day, you were pretty much done with things to do down there except watch the moon come up. And so they decided, well, what should we do? And they said, well, let's make beer. And so
as one does.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
logical. And so we it's sort of an odd partnership, but we partnered with the Division of Mine and Minerals for the state. They have a program there to reclaim previous coal mine land, and they were looking for a way to spend money on some infrastructure investment that would bring income there that wasn't ATV trails. And so we put the project together to work with the growers. Got a top-notch county extension agent who when I first started this, I said, well, let's put these trials in like 5 counties. And she called me back and she said, nope. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in my county where I can look at every one of them every week. I was like, okay, Amy, we'll do that. And it was perfect, right? Because she was there holding those guys' hands, the entire first season or 2. And so anyway, that was a great move that sort of happened accidentally. But they're building a grain handling facility in Southwest Virginia, which I really never thought we would do. But the demand is there, right? And so and the land's there. It had just been growing tobacco, and with the loss of tobacco acres, they needed something else. And so it's a cool project. So you've got the local, the regional rural investment folks. You've got mines and minerals. You've got agriculture involved in it. And then we also worked with a community college in the region that's going to provide some of the labor. Just kind of happenstance, but the president of that university had actually gone to K-State and had some connections. So those students that work in that facility are going to be able to get a certificate program through the milling program at K-State. So sort of developing that side of it as well, that workforce piece, but that accreditation so that they've got the ability to grow elsewhere. So, and whatever's left over after we make beer, you can feed to the cows that are down there.
That's right.
So I hope it's a win-win. It took. We could have never, a for-profit company would have never built that facility there, right? It had to be somebody who had the money and an investment to say, we've got to generate some income here. So we'll build it without the need to have a return on it in 5 years, and it'll grow from there. And I think they can do that.
So I think along those lines, you've done a lot of on-farm stuff, working directly with producers from a research and extension standpoint. How do you see fostering that as now the leader of this department here? Yeah,
it's funny. When I was in Virginia, somebody asked at one point about, well, are you able to do what you want to do because of your administrators? And I had to kind of look back and I answer honestly that, my entire time as a faculty member there, nobody really told me what to do or what not to do. I mean, I had a job description, but I never had one conversation about you need to do this or you need to stop doing that. Now, every time I left town and got in a room full of farmers or in a field, none of them were bashful about telling me what I should be doing and what I should be working on. And I think that same structure exists here. We have a really good network through our county educators in terms of a way to sort of bring that information, keep that information flow going both ways. I see, we have a number of extension specialists and researchers who seek that out. They look for that input from the growers. And then I think we've got a really good, strong alumni base who are willing to put up with us. Because if you've ever dealt with on-farm research, we're a pain. We're out in the middle of things. You have to work around us. We want special treatment. We may or may not be. If you call this morning, I'm going to try my best to get there this afternoon, but I may not make it. And so there are some real challenges there, but there's some real benefits. And so as we look to facilitate that, I think we also support the industry quite well. So our retail consulting and that sort of stuff. And so I think that's another piece there that people look to OSU to provide. But that also then brings another connection to the problems and the issues that are out there, and then how we can address them.
So you mentioned earlier about you talk about the undergrad program, and it seems to me that jobs are abundant, and you need more students.
Yep.
So I mean, how do you get students excited about plant and soil sciences or whatever it might be, because you're certainly turning out students that are coveted in the industry, and because of the hands-on and just the being practical, they've got a good foundation that a company can do whatever they want with them once they get them.
Yep, I agree with you. So I guess my short answer is that we're somewhat in the infancy of growing our scope of influence there. What I can tell you is, as I looked at this and thought about it, even young people who have grown up in agriculture, they've all met a veterinarian. Most of them have met an ag lender, right? Somebody that focuses on the ag side of things. And so they recognize those careers. I don't know that many of them have met an agronomist or have met an entomologist.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a little bit of a harder path to let them know that we're here. Now, that said, that our ideal student doesn't necessarily come from an ag background, right? I mean, we don't require dentists to have had mothers who were dentists,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's not an expectation. So we need to find a way. And the ideal student for me in our program likes to work outside, likes to solve problems, and they like to work with living things, right? And as opposed to an engineer who would work with, not most of them anyway, with non-living things. And if those three things interest you, then we might be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to be outside, we're probably not the best fit for you. And certainly if you don't want to solve problems, this is not a great career, because there are always things and challenges to deal with, and it's not, it's environmental, it's things that you really can't control, and so how do you manage that the best you can? We do have some ongoing discussions with community colleges in the state, trying to facilitate making that transition as easy as possible, so I think there'll be some growth for us from there in the coming years, and that's my first step toward it.
Most of our students are transfers anyways, coming from an associate's degree.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And so making sure that, the courses that are on their books transfer and all of that sort of stuff, just the logistics behind the scenes is probably, as big a thing as any, is to make it as easy as we can. And then also, that they know we're here and that we could be a pretty good destination for them.
I think that knowing that they're here is a big thing. You're talking about 20-year-olds earlier. A guy told me once that there's a lot of 18-year-olds that know what they want to do, and some of them are even right.
Definitely.
Because they haven't been exposed to stuff. And I go back and I came here a long, long time ago to be a mechanical engineer, because I liked mechanical things and I liked math, and so it's engineering. And I'm sitting in Ag Hall reading room. Probably remember where it was. It's not there anymore. But back in the day, and there was a little slick sheet on ag engineering. Never heard of it. And I'm like, oh, I like agriculture. I'd spent a summer mowing hay and working in the hay field, and so that was my introduction to it. And I said, so it's being able to find those students and connect with them. And maybe if they change the advising model here, what they're going to on campus, that maybe there's an exposure to students that you wouldn't have had before. But
very possible. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of students that would enjoy it and be a good agronomist and get good jobs, good paying jobs.
Very true.
And but you just got to get connected to them. And if I knew how to do it, I'd just tell you, and it'd be over. But I don't, and it's not going to be easy, I guess. But
and of course, we're trying.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, and somebody told me a story about, there's a major an option, I guess, concentration in food science that has like 8 kids and 6 of them from the same hometown. And the story's not 100% correct, but it's about like that.
Yeah.
In that, they knew somebody who got into that field, got a great job, and they're like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so, but we're working toward that for sure.
So I'm going to ask, just because my wife is a STEM teacher, but is 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade too early to start exposing to, the potential of a plant soil science direction? Because she's in the process. Well, this is her first year to start up a STEM program for her school, and she's looking for resources right now to get the kids excited about the industries of science, technology, engineering, and math. And is that age group too early to go? What if you wanted to go learn more about soil?
Right. I'm going to say it's not.
Right.
I really don't, because I think one of the things that happens for us is that that farming looks like, in some people's perceptions,
right,
the Currier and Ives version of this, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's Green Acres.
Yeah.
and it's not. We're a heavily science-based program. Just come look at our degree sheets and look at the chemistry and mathematics that are required to get through the programs. That's a requirement to understand the systems that we work in, but that's sometimes not the perception. So, I don't disagree with you. If we could instill that as that's what this field of study is at an early age, it'd be beneficial.
Well, and we went to Disney World a few weeks ago, and to go through Epcot and see I'm going to mess it up, but there's a whole area devoted to hydroponics and all of the different ways that they are approaching growing, food for the future.
Right.
And, if there was a way for a department to say, third graders, that looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Well, this is the science behind it. And, take that approach. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is we're at a weird crossroads, right? Some of the kids that maybe want to be in our department don't want to take the math and the chemistry, and the ones that would take the math and chemistry have never heard of us before.
Exactly,
and I think that's the biggest thing is and a lot more of our students now are coming from non-traditional, I would say, areas. Coming out of Oklahoma City and Tulsa and Enid and seeing that jobs are available. I mean, that they're fine to go in the ag field. They see jobs and a potential career available. And I guess that's the big thing is not only when do you get them, it's how do you reach those that, as you said, haven't even met a lender or anything like that. They've
no ag experience at all.
They have no ag experience.
That's a real challenge because I've done a little bit of that in terms of the STEM teachers conference or whatever, and while there'll be a few people that'll pick up your information, a lot of them are just not interested in that. They don't see the science in agriculture either, I guess is the short answer. And so I don't know how to bridge that gap, but there may be some things that we can do to try to get this career in front of more people, specifically.
And I think the other big thing that I've talked to so many people about is that it's the opposite side of the track mentality. Is that they've been told, in Oklahoma City or out of Dallas or something like that, the negative stigma, the negative social aspects of agriculture. Look at all these, spraying chemicals all over our native areas and stuff like that. And it's jumping over that and saying, well, I mean, there's part of agriculture that's this, and there's part of agriculture that's big environmental and maintaining our wetlands and our native pastures and stuff like that. And, you can be on this side as well. So,
well, and, if you want to have, I think it's important to think about the scope of things too, because if those are your concerns, agriculture accepts 70% of the arable land in the world. So if you want to influence the landscape, the environment, agriculture has to be a part of that.
Yep.
And it, and that's a very reasonable approach for me for somebody in a career like this.
Well, I think when you mentioned Sam Emerson, that's the faculty fellow on nourishing the world. Mm-hmm. Well, let me clue you in. You're not going to nourish the world without an agronomist, And so,
well, thank you for saying that.
So I mean, it's. I think there's an opportunity there because I think when we look at the generations that are going to be coming into college soon, and maybe even the ones that are here, and the recent ones they're more interested in changing the environment that they live, the world, than they are. Us, our generation is like going, I'm getting a job now and I have a career now,
right.
And this is my job. So you 16, 19 years at Virginia Tech is like, you weren't looking for another job.
Right.
This is where I am. Where now they're like, yeah, it's a good first job.
Right.
And so it's a whole different mentality. But I think there is that, hey, if you want to nourish and feed the world, then here's an opportunity to impact how that works. And get paid good money to do it, so now you can donate more money to your charity of choice.
But speaking of which, you want to talk about the agronomy farm?
I guess we're quietly fundraising for that, and so Dave, one of the things that we've recognized here with this facility where we are today at the Agronomy Research Station is that the newest building that is not equipment storage was built in 1980.
Wow.
The first building here was built in 1945.
Right.
And we've got one of our signature programs and one of the most important programs in the state, our wheat breeding program. Some of the greenhouses that are there were installed in the Eisenhower administration, and so when you talk to Dr. Carver and he says things like when my plants stand a better chance outside against Mother Nature than in these buildings, then we've got a problem.
Right.
And so it's the next building priority, construction priority for the Division of Ag is renovations here at the agronomy farm. So that's going to be a new set of greenhouses and head house that will basically mimic the footprint of what we have today, except it will be modern and it'll be climate controlled much better. Water in those plants will be automated rather than people having to come out here on Sunday morning with a water hose and take care of them. They'll be able to monitor temperature and all of that sort of stuff on the phone, and so it's that makes the job for the technicians much better too. A new modern head house that in fact doesn't leak. When I was in there in the springtime, Jason said, don't laugh. He said these are the places that stay dry. So this looks like total disorder in here, but if I put them in the shelf where it looks like they ought to be, they get wet.
Wow.
So we've got some of that. I'd love to see our wheat quality lab move out here in that head house or in an adjacent facility, so that group is right together and we're not carrying samples back and forth. So that's a huge piece of it. We're also going to install some high throughput phenotyping technology in at least one of those houses, and so we should be able to advance that breeding efforts more rapidly. And then the other plan at this point is to build a lab, office, classroom, and meeting room facility here on the center that would host the soil water forage testing lab, plant disease and insect diagnostic lab, and then have offices for the staff and personnel that are out here. I think of plan for a 40 or 50 seat classroom. Some could meet out here, but I would view it more likely as a stand-in for a lab class that might need to come in out of the weather or might need to do some stuff inside and outside. Then they could come out here, and then a meeting room for up to about 30. Mm-hmm. So you've obviously been to campus. Parking can be a challenge.
Oh yeah.
And so the ability to come out here, I think, is user friendly for the folks that are using our soil testing lab, our diagnostic lab, but also as well when we have organizations, associations that come to town, want to meet with us, want to meet in town, we can do that. So we are working with architects right now to revise some drawings that existed about 5 years ago, and moving forward with fundraising on that. We're going to have to privately fundraise for a good portion of that
right.
cost. And so we're working with that, but thankfully, we've got really strong support in the industry here in the state. We're going to have, I think, a number of individuals that also come forward and support that. But for me, it's a really exciting time because next time you come in from the west, look this way, mm-hmm. and tell me if the university had to spend $25 million, could they put it in a better more visible place that would take this from being 1945 to being 2025,
right? With
a major reset on our production ag research side.
I remember a couple of years ago, whenever there was a big freeze. Golly, what was that? 2019, somewhere around
2020.
there? Yeah, and Dr. Carver, I mean, it wiped out his experimental wheat in that one area there, and he said, this set me back.
Yeah.
And I asked him how many years. He says, have not decided yet. And
yeah,
but the only protection from the elements is that fiberglass, corrugated roof in that one area. So it's exciting to hear that there's plans for updating facilities here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in particular the wheat program, because when I was talking to Dr. Emerson, one of the cases I made was, let's look at the economic impact of these things.
Right.
This is the agronomist math, but if you add in the stocker cattle that are in the region, the OSU wheat varieties, you could attribute about $300 million worth of on-farm income
right.
directly to that. So that's significant for me. I don't know about other people, but and so to have a situation like that where we're risking some of the future from that over aging facilities, I think it's a wise move for us to invest there.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us on the Red Dirt Agronomy podcast this week. It's been a lot of fun, and it was great to learn about your past, but then also the direction of the department here.
Appreciate the opportunity to do it.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy podcast. And if you'd like to join the next discussion, send us an email, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, or send us a tweet. Our handle is reddirtag. We'd like to thank Oklahoma State University's Dr. Wade Thomason for joining us on the podcast today. And if you get a chance, head over to our website where you can find out more information about our guests, along with any of the resources that we talked about on today's podcast. Visit reddirtagronomy.com. For Dr. Josh Lofton, Dr. Brian Ernell, and Dr. Randy Taylor, I am Dave Deacon, and we all want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Agnow Media, LLC, 2023. And yes, all rights are reserved.